As someone who lives firmly planted in both the creative and the technical workspaces, I am thrilled with the prospect of AI image generation going a little bit more mainstream, especially when it comes to smaller creators like me. Today we're going to look at an AI image generation tool that I've been playing around with on my server and see if you might be able to work it into your own creative processes. Alright everyone, our customers have spoken. I'm hearing they're no longer satisfied with normal intelligence. So instead we need to jump right on to the next big thing, and that of course is... artificial intelligence? What? No, everyone uses AI. We need something bigger, something better. We need to jump straight to ludicrous intelligence. What if we just used actual intelligence and went with Vultr? We can run our services in the cloud. They've got options for virtualized or bare metal instances, even HPC or GPU compute for AI accelerated workloads. What about storage? Yep, SSD-backed object and block storage plans. Easy deployments? Over 100 one-click installs for common services. Well then, what are we all standing around here for? Well, I did say this meeting probably could have been an email. Vultr is the everywhere cloud, with 32 locations worldwide, allowing you to host apps and services no matter where you or your customers live. And with more than 100 one-click installers, you'll be able to get your OS and services up and running in no time. From managed WordPress solutions, to gaming hosts, and even full NVIDIA GPU stacks for AI-driven businesses, all without the cost or complexity of hyperscalers. Visit vultr.com/craft and get a $300 credit to your account just for signing up. Again, that's vultr.com/craft, and a huge thanks to Vultr for sponsoring today's video. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. So, what do you do when you have an Epic Genoa 64-core server loaded up with 256 gigabytes of registered ECC DDR5 memory and a pair of 24GB RTX A5000 graphics cards? The answer you might expect from me is to see how many copies of Crysis I can run at the same time. And don't worry, we're definitely going to get there. But one of the main reasons I'm interested in hardware like this is actually for use as a content creation tool with the help of AI. Now, before you click away, I'm not talking about having GPT write or enhance my videos for me, or having Stable Diffusion generate thumbnails. All content on this channel is going to be, and has always been, straight from my brain, for better or for worse. I'm also not talking about using it for generating artwork for the merch that I sell, which you can get over at craftcomputing.store, and is all designed and made right here in-house. No, what I'm talking about is using generative AI to increase my production value here as a content creator, or help create art assets that I don't have the time or the skill to do so on my own. I often have ideas for videos that I'd like to produce that involve different set pieces, or need a different feel than what I can deliver here in my studio. And while I'm pretty happy with my set design overall, when it comes to delivering product reviews and tutorials, it's a little limiting for more creative aspects of my work. In fact, it just so happens that the pre-roll that you see on this video, I did a skit that takes place in a corporate boardroom. And I don't know if you noticed, but I don't exactly have one of those lying around. So rather than booking an office for a day, I opted instead to just replace the background of those shots with images of a boardroom. Now that sounds really simple in practice, but believe it or not, this brings up a ton of other issues that I'd need to solve as a content creator. For setting up the boardroom, do I license a stock photo for use in my video? Keep in mind, there are 2 camera angles in that skit, which would require me getting a commercial license on 2 separate images. Do I want to skip out on stock photos and capture the images myself? I would still need to find a suitable location and take pictures, then edit the photos for use in my scenes. But then I thought, if AI-generated images are here, and they're open source, why aren't I using them to my advantage? So I downloaded invokeai into a virtual machine on my new server, set up a virtual GPU pass-through thanks to NVIDIA Grid, and generated a pair of images that matched the vision that I had in my head. As far as shooting those scenes, rather than going production heavy and using a green screen and chroma keying, which my studio is definitely not set up to do properly, I just threw the images onto a TV and did the quickest and dirtiest form of virtual production that I've ever witnessed. The end result isn't perfect, as I wound up with some rolling shutter on the TV due to a frame rate mismatch between my current camera and the TV. But overall, the effect is pretty decent, and I did the entire shoot from image generation to filming and editing in less than 2 hours. Working on this for a few more hours to dial in camera settings and lighting could make this a very repeatable process with fantastic results in the future, as could replacing the TV with a, let's say, 100-inch instead of a 55-inch, giving me a wider field of view and being able to play more in a virtual space. There have been a number of other times that I've wanted to film a scene in a location that I simply didn't have access to, Or maybe it just didn't exist. I've done a Star Trek-inspired ad where I would have preferred to be on the bridge of a ship rather than sitting here at my desk. I envisioned Rhett standing in a sprawling data center, or maybe an engine control room, not standing out in my garage. How about the lightsaber duel, where my fridge is clearly visible behind me, let alone the shelving on the wall that's filled with all of my different trinkets? And those are just the ads. I've had ideas about changing my background depending on the type of review that I'm working on, or putting my desk into a different environment entirely. Think something like CoffeeZilla Studio with 1940s inspired grungy newspaper office and a steaming mug of coffee. Or maybe I'm sitting in front of a, old-timey bar and delivering a tech review or a Talking Heads piece. Those are all examples of something called virtual production, the process of transporting an actor from one place into a scene where you want to shoot, but being able to capture it directly in camera with no additional compositing required. TechWiki and GameLinked over at LTT already do this, although they use a 3D rendered set in Unreal Engine and a live compositor from Blackmagic to do all of the green screen work for them. But the result is pretty much the same. I'm wanting to bring a similar level of scene composition to some of my creative projects, but instead of 3D modeling entire new sets, maybe just utilizing generative AI to help bring those visions from my head into reality. Before we get into the actual software that I used in this project, if you haven't seen my Ethics of Generative AI video that I made last year, it's definitely worth checking out. I go over a good chunk of the questions surrounding the use of generative AI in relation to both copyright and ethical use. That's not to say I don't have any more thoughts on current hot button issues like replacing voice actors with AI recreations of their own characters. But I love the idea of having tools like this available to smaller independent studios that wouldn't have the budget for voice actors in the first place, and being able to take advantage of AI voice generation to provide a deeper level of immersion in their own projects. Think about fan-made total conversion mods for Skyrim, for example. Being able to give characters a unique voice, or expanding a dialogue tree for existing characters, is already being done by modders and brings a new level of polish to some already fantastic work. There is no easy answer here in terms of legally speaking. Voice actors have the rights to their own voice, and corporations should not be able to recreate them without paying a voice actor for their work of creating the voice. But stating that voice generation shouldn't exist kind of diminishes the ability of someone like me or a small indie dev studio to be able to provide different voices to all of their characters to match a creative vision that they have. It's not a cut and dry situation as we would like it to be. But we're also not here to argue about any of that. Today we're going to take a look at image generation tools that I've been playing around with, and that I think might have a real impact on how I'm able to bring some of my creative endeavors into reality. Again, the hardware that I'm running all this on today is absolutely insane. I've got an Epic Genoa 9554 64-core server, as well as a pair of RTX A5000 graphics cards. But that's not to say you can't actually run the software on your own PC locally if you'd rather go that route. You don't necessarily need a top-flight enterprise graphics card. As far as the GPU configuration, I will be using NVIDIA's Grid. It's the same system that I use to split graphics cards for cloud gaming. It will allow me to run individual virtual machines for each AI service that I want, and allocate a set amount of VRAM to each. It also keeps things sandboxed, so I can install or remove or start and stop any service dynamically depending on my needs. The application we'll be looking at today is invokeai. It's a multi-platform image generation and modification toolset with a web-based interface. You can run this on either a Windows or Linux host, and it creates a self-hosted web server for you to actually use the application. For the hypervisor, of course, I'm going to be running the latest version of Proxmox, and I chose to go with Ubuntu Server 2204 on the virtual machine. The main reason for this is invokeai requires Python 3.11 in its current state, and the latest version of Ubuntu Server ships with Python 3.12. Earlier versions are not available in the package manager, so running a slightly older version of Ubuntu Server is easier than uninstalling Python and compiling every dependency from source. And I'm sure the Linux bros are going to come at me for this, but keep in mind the server is only accessible on my local LAN. This is not open to the internet as a whole, and I'm still running all of my other security patches. Installation is dead simple, as there's a script for either Windows or Linux, and the process is pretty much automated. The only dependencies that you need to install on your own are pip and venv for Python, and the installer takes care of everything else. By default, Invoke only allows access via the loopback address on your local machine. A quick config change lets you access it from your local LAN. Once that's done, you can enter the IP address of your InvokeAI server into a web browser, along with port number 9090, and you're up and running. Now, InvokeAI doesn't actually include any image generation models installed by default, and you'll need those if you want to generate images. On the left side of the screen, you can click on the Models tab and select one of the Quick Start supported options. You can also download other models from places like Hugging Face or the internet at large if you have more specific requirements. InvokeAI is compatible with Stable Diffusion 1.5 and 2, SDXL, as well as a variety of other text-to-image and image-to-image model sets. For starter models, I've actually been very impressed with the results from Juggernaut XL v9. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert on AI image generation. Like I said, I'm quite new at this, and I'm installing these models as a way to see if I can integrate them into my workflow. I have done previous videos on Stable Diffusion v2, and even included how to train it on your own face with some okay results. But that's also not the focus of today's project. Once you have a model installed, you can go to the Generation tab, give the model a prompt, define your settings, and then start creating images. I've been playing around with feeding the AI prompts and generating images for the last week or so, mainly focusing on building better prompts. The better your prompt, the more information the AI has to work with when generating your image. Like all things with AI, I've gotten some pretty spectacular results, as well as some cursed disfigured abominations that have crept their way out of hell and both permanently damaged my eyes and my will to live. Most of them are somewhere in the middle. What drew me to checking out InvokeAI was not the AI models themselves. There's nothing special about the models that it's running. It's actually the ability to refine the images element by element by regenerating sections of an image. You can also upload your own images and add or refine elements through AI generation. All of this on a self-hosted web GUI running in your home lab. Pretty sweet, right? Well, let's go ahead and see it in action. So switching over to the other camera here, let's go ahead and jump into my desktop, and you can see I've got InvokeAI open. This is the main screen that you'll be greeted with. This is the image generation screen. So you've got tabs over here for different modes and settings and configurations. The main one you're going to be on is generation, and that's where you can generate images just like this. Again, if I'm looking to create a boardroom scene, here's a couple of fantastic examples that I churned out just before I started this video. You've got this nice vista of skyscrapers in the background. I really love that we've got this glass or dark wood coffee table. We've got reflections from the top. Like, what? Like, nearly accurate reflections of the windows and the lighting above. Is it going to hold up to a lot of scrupulation? You know, if I open this in a new tab and I zoom in, no, there's artifacts everywhere. There's, this paper or, phone. It looks like a conference phone here. That's obviously terrible. We've got, is that like a random stapler that someone left behind? I don't know. The chairs aren't exactly uniform from one to the other. You've got this one right here that has no seam in the middle. You've got this one with some vertical seams. There's some obvious tells, and the reflections aren't great. They're wavy. God forbid you look at the background of this image as well. The skyscrapers are, horribly wobbled and disfigured, but from a distance and slightly out of focus, this would pass for a video background. And in fact, did pass for a video background in the ad that you saw at the beginning of this video. And this is kind of the thing that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for, super accurate, detail-rich environments. I'm looking to simply set a scene or set a mood that I can use to enhance my video production. So why am I interested in this tool in particular? Well, it's because not only can you generate images, you can alter images feature by feature later on. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of what I've done, and then maybe we'll walk through one. One of the main things that I see image generation being useful for is, let's say you wanted to run a D&D campaign. And rather than just having characters design minifigs, and then your minifig is your stand-in, what if you could give visual representation of different scenarios or scenes, or more than what you can do in real life space. So what if you had like an elf character and she's supposed to be wielding swords? So I generated this one, and the image overall looks fantastic. We've got the campfire in the background. We've got this real nice lush forest, fantastic detail on the armor. But like all things with AI,
The hands are a very obvious tell, especially if you want someone to be holding something. And so my prompt for this one was a female fantasy elf holding a long sword. The sword has intricate Celtic carvings. The elf is standing in a forest near a campfire, and it is dusk. And it got, 8 out of 10 for generating that. You've got a sword that's being held backwards, and then 2 fingers coming over the blade, and it just looks awful. And then I have no idea what's going on over here. So what if you generated this image and you love this image and you're like, well, I can't use it though unless I crop it right here. But does that really tell the story that I'm wanting to tell? Well, you can regenerate these sections of the image and get rid of those items entirely. Now, are the hands still perfect? No. It's still definitely an AI-generated image, but this is 99% usable, whereas this one would need to be cropped in or thrown away. And that's the advantage of invokeai that I'm really, really excited for. And then here's one more example that I really liked the results of. So here's, another fantasy female character, full armor, riding on a horse. The horse looks fantastic. There's no real obvious tells that this is an AI-generated image. It's kind of a misty morning. Overall, I like the look of this one. However, the face didn't turn out so well. The left eye is kind of crooked and sideways. Let's see if I can get a bigger image of this one for you. The face is not good. The lips are swollen. It looks like the perspective is twisted on the face. But overall, a pretty pleasing image. Like I said, the horse turned out wonderful. The armor turned out fantastic. The saddle is accurate. It all looks good. If only we could do something about that. Well, you can select just the face and redo that section of the image and turn up with a much more usable overall image. Let me show you how to do that. So let's take this exact same image. Let's take this prompt. Fantasy character, female rogue. It was supposed to be wearing leather armor, but I liked the metal armor so much. Riding on a horse. This horse is standing in a clearing in the forest. It is early morning. So let's just go ahead and put that prompt in there. Again, I'm using the Juggernaut XL V9 Stable Diffusion XL model here. And let's just create a one-off image, and let's see what happens. Okay, very similar results. I'm seeing really, really good depiction of a horse. The armor is absolutely on point. Let's see if we can zoom in here a little bit. We'll get to the face in a second. Overall, the armor looks great. The horse looks really good. We've even got a stirrup on the left-hand side. Maybe a little deformity in the foot there, but I don't know if we'll pay that too much bother. The saddle looks pretty well done. Looks pretty realistic overall. I don't see any real anomalies in the forest behind us. Overall, a pretty good image, if not for that. Well, let's go ahead and fix that. Let's copy this prompt, and we're going to go over to the Canvas tool. So I'm going to click on Canvas. Now, this is a workshop for editing AI images with AI, and it uses an image-to-image model instead of a text-to-image model. So we will still be entering text right here to tell the AI what exactly we're looking for here. But what I can do is if I select mask and then I take my brush, I'm going to come up on here and I'm just going to paint the face. I'm going to basically draw around the jawline. There we go. And just make sure this whole area is painted in. In fact, I'm going to go all the way to the ear. So the ear could use a little work too. But I like the hair overall. I think it looks pretty decent. The bounding box, which is this outer box right here, this is where the image is going to take reference from. So it's going to look at the image, it's going to look at all the elements that are inside of here, and then regenerate just the area that's inside the mask. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this down a little bit to hopefully just basically focus on the woman and the face. So now that that's done, I'm going to hit invoke. And as you can see, when it goes through the image generation, it's only going to focus right here, which means all of the resources for the image generation are going into just drawing the face, just shoring up the face area. And now we have a much more usable example here. So here's the before, and here's the after. It allows you to take, like I said, a 80% good image with some very unfortunate qualities, and turn it into a fantastic usable image that you can actually use. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. We will accept those changes, and then if I hit save right up here in the main taskbar, it'll save the second image. So now, if I go over to my generation tab, I can see the original image and then back to back with the modified image. And again, you can do this with a whole bunch of different elements. Like I said, I did this with this elf warrior just to remove the swords. Now, obviously, it added a second campfire in the background, but it got rid of the horrendously deformed hands. I call that a win. But that's the fantasy side of things. That's the dungeon master in me kind of taking over here. What if I wanted to design set pieces? Back to my original intention for this video. Well, let's go a futuristic spaceship command center. There are 2 computer stations in front of a large main view screen. If you catch my drift of what I'm aiming for, let's just see what that gives. Let's just see how that does. Okay, didn't quite catch what I was picking up, but this is a modern, futuristic-looking center to look at. I'm not thrilled with these chairs, the rolly chairs. I don't know if we'd actually use those in a spaceship, but the chairs overall match the general aesthetics of the area that we're looking at. We've got a main view station over here. We've got more of a command center with 2 or 3 stations there. Let's go ahead and redraw this prompt, and let's see if we can eliminate chairs. Let's see if we can do a station with no chairs at all. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now we've got some standing workstations. We've got a main view screen up here. As it finishes drawing this image for us. I don't know how anyone would work inside of here. You'd have to duck underneath, but we could always fix this in Photoshop by eliminating this panel right here. But this ends up being honestly, again, for a background or a set dressing or something like that, in the way that I would use it, which is in the background and out of focus. This is a totally usable image for me to put in the background to make you believe that I am in a spaceship. I can even go a step further, and I can go into Photoshop and I can select all of the different monitors and whatnot, put different logos or different typefaces. I could totally modify this image to fit my purposes. The other neat functionality that this has built in through one of its models is automatic upscaling and post-processing. So right now I'm generating images essentially at 720p. It's 1366 by 768 resolution, which gets me a nice 16 by 9 aspect ratio. And as the models are trained on 1024 by 1024 in SDXL, that means I'm not exceeding the pixel count. I'm just changing the aspect ratio of what the models are expecting to see. You get some weird results sometimes, but again, I need 16 by 9 images, so that's a nice trade-off. But let's say I wanted to upscale this to, a 2.5K image. There's a upscaler that is available for a model that you can download that is an automatic 4x upscaler. So if we hit process on that, this one just takes a couple of minutes, and there we go. So let me open that up. And again, not perfect, but if I wanted to go through and start, refining some of these details, let's say I needed some of this in focus for a particular shot, there's no reason I couldn't straighten up a couple of these lines and, modify some of the details on here to make them fit a little bit better with the creative vision that I have in my head. And this is one of the things that I'm talking about in that I don't mind AI being used in the creative process. Should AI replace an artist? No. Should AI replace a voice actor? No. Should AI replace a scriptwriter? No. But AI can be used as a tool set in the creative process. I have some visions in my head of what I want some things to look like, but generating an AI image and being able to choose a subset of 20 starter images and get inspired to be able to modify some of these designs, you know, let's say, again, I don't want this panel here, but I like the idea of this walk-in wraparound control center for a background in a video. There's no reason I couldn't, again, take this image, modify it to my own use cases, or use this as a starting template and go and design this myself. Let's say I wanted to, you know, create a full virtual set of this piece. Now I have a template that I can start to work with. I have a starting point. I have a storyboard for the final vision that might be inside my head. And let's go ahead and take this a step further. Let me put this at full screen. So right now this is actually showing on the TV on the other side of my office. Let me walk over there and you can see kind of what this looks like.
So here is my normal shooting desk, and if you look up here to the right, you can see I've just got a 55-inch TV. It's a LG, it's 1080p. There is absolutely nothing special about this particular unit. If we look to the other side of my office here, you can see I've got my camera set up with my teleprompter with the script that I was reading not just 10 minutes ago on it. But the camera is set up and it is looking directly at the TV. So if I go and I sit down over here, this is pretty much what it looks like. Obviously, I need to do a little bit more with the lighting here. I haven't quite adjusted it for this particular scene, but it's a pretty convincing image replacement. And the cool thing about it is it's 100% in camera. There's no green screen, there's no compositing, there's no weirdness. And like I said a couple minutes ago, all of the little, you know, inconsistencies in here, when it's not in focus, they all fade away. This looks like a pretty convincing me sitting inside of a spaceship, you know, Starship Bridge scene, rather than the AI horrible abomination of artifacting that you could see when I was zooming in and pixel peeping at this image. It's the same thing with the boardroom situation. It's the same thing with like the conference phone on the table and the skyscrapers in the background. They all fade into obscurity because that's not the focus of the video. I'm the focus of the video. This is set dressing. So that is a brief look at AI image generation and how you might be able to use it as a content creator. There was nothing special about my particular setup. Again, it's just a 55-inch TV and a 8 or 9 year old one at that. I've had that TV for a very long time. If I had something like an OLED screen, I could get even deeper blacks, I could help control reflections a little bit better, and I could sync up my camera a little bit more easily to that. I'm running a Sony a7 IV right now, and the codec that I record in doesn't allow me to do 29.97 frame rates. I'm limited to 30p, which doesn't quite match up with the refresh rate. So even at I think I had that at a 360 degree shutter, there was still a slight amount of rolling shutter, although better than the ad that I filmed earlier. Now, basic AI image generation and modification isn't the only thing that I'm interested in this space. I have aspirations of doing some AI-generated music for backing tracks, so I no longer have to rely on Creative Commons sources like Kevin MacLeod. Being able to self-host all of this, being able to run all of this open source software in my own hardware stack, means that I own all of the means of production for being able to produce videos. I'm not going to be reliant on Creative Commons music being around. I'm not going to have to license images for backgrounds or backdrops. Everything that I would use for content creation is owned right here in-house. And that's a really cool thing. Now, I'm also interested in potentially expanding the idea of using virtual production. Again, I'm not sure exactly how I would utilize it or what it would make sense to do, but even using AI in virtual production, there are some pretty cool projects that are out there. During the research and the writing of this video, I also spent a lot of time looking at different virtual production setups, everything from green screens to TVs to projectors and the like, and I'm really interested in exploring that space a little bit more, whether or not it ends up being content that's produced on my channel or just something that I put in my tool bag for special use cases.
One of the coolest things that I saw that used just basic AI image creation and using InvokeAI was a channel called AndyAX, and he used image generation, but then essentially created parallax effects using multiple AI-generated images and some transparency layers. And so you can import those layers into Unreal and have the camera change perspective of essentially multiple layers of matte painting. It was a really cool effect. Be sure to watch that video if you're interested in any of the tech around that. But that's all I've got for you today as far as this very brief look at InvokeAI and image generation and content creation. But what do you guys want to see out of content like this? Do you want me to do some more content on, virtual production, virtual set? Would you like to see me try to get a green screen in here and see if I can start playing with Unreal and 3D set design? Let me know in the comments below. It's definitely something I'm interested in. I'm just not sure how interested you all will be with it. So, sound off. If you're interested in any of the hardware that I used for today's project, I will leave a link to the build video down in the video description, as well as a full list of all the hardware used. I'm still getting acquainted with all this hardware, figuring out exactly what configuration I want it to be in, and figuring out exactly how I want to test VDI and some other aspects that I normally test out here on the channel. So, again, if you have anything that you'd like to see done on that hardware, let me know down in the comments. On your way down there, you all know what to do. Drop this video a like, subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already, and to help support the channel, head on over to craftcomputing.store, pick up some of our fantastic merch, everything from bottle openers to glassware, and start drinking like a pro, or head on over to Patreon and get access to the Discord server. You can chat with myself as well as the other hosts from Talking Heads. And that's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, everyone. Beer for today is a beer that turned many people into dark beer drinkers. I'm talking, of course, about Deschutes' Black Butte Porter. This is an Oregon classic and a gateway for many to start becoming familiar with dark beers. Deschutes Brewing, Bend, Oregon, 5.5%. Named for iconic Black Butte towering high above Central Oregon and seen for miles, the surprisingly balanced porter has notes of rich chocolate and coffee, a luscious creaminess, and roasted finish. No wonder it's America's favorite. It's funny. Black Butte Porter is a staple of craft beer. It is one of the most recognizable entry-level dark beers that exists. They brew it an hour and a half from me. I'm not that far from Bend. It's probably been 3 years or more since I've had one. Simply because I like drinking dark beer. I like, experimenting with different things. And I always forget how good it is. It's only 5.5%, so it's not boozy. It's not super big or bold. But specifically, I really like the coffee out of this beer. It is just that right balance between sweet and creamy and bitter, and a little bit of a char roast to it. It's just super pleasant. It's super drinkable. I'm here in the middle of summer drinking, a dark beer, and it's delicious. What more could you ask for?